Hi, I'm Jim Gordon for Small Cap Power. Joining us today for a chat is Frank Holmes, the Chief Executive and Chief Investment Officer at U.S. Global Investors, specializing in natural resources and emerging market investing. Frank, welcome to our chat here at Small Cap Power.
Jim, it's great to be with you again. It's been many months before COVID.
You know, Frank, it was only 6-7 months ago when you and I last chatted on camera, but it seems like 100 years ago as these unprecedented times we're living in. Before we get into more specifics, I'd love to get your thoughts on what has happened in the last 6 months. And we really want to touch and wrap things up with this first question, talking about this video you did on YouTube in March.
Well, we use a quant approach for picking stocks, for looking at the world and macro forces. And we create this sort of, they call it a quant proprietary sentiment analysis of looking at the world's commodities and emerging markets. And we see that they oscillate from over 85 to below 20, and they give you pivot points of overbought, oversold. And what we saw in mid-March was an all-time low, worse than 2008. And so that said to us, it's got to be a buy. It's just so much pain out there, and the governments are spending all this money. So let's ignore the negative news. Let's just go with the math, and that actually, looking back, was the bottom.
Day in, day out, week in, week out, as I said, since I last talked to you, seems a long time ago, but what are you seeing out there? What are people saying since you and I last talked in January?
Well, people have become much more convinced since we spoke about the world of gold. The first time at the Vancouver Resource Conference Cambridge puts on was 18 months ago, and I said the Golden Cross is just occurring. Most people don't understand it, won't believe it. And this year, coming again, that it's a bull market. And what's interesting is that the Golden Cross took place a year ago. We started seeing on CNBC billionaire hedge fund managers, the Ray Dalios, Sam Zell's, Paul Tudor Jones coming on and telling throughout those 6 months why they're buying gold. And back then it was always a negative perspective by CNBC interviewers, and now it's all gone too much. So they're going to continue to miss this sort of secular bull market. And I think what's really important when the Golden Cross takes place is that we will get these extreme overbought periods that can be over 20 or 60 trading days, and then they capitulate, fall quickly, people become non-believers, and then it slowly climbs to new highs.
Frank, with gold surpassing $2,000 an ounce last week, you're an expert in this space, even predicting this price range at the start of 2020, as you mentioned earlier. Is it crazy to see it at like 4,000 over the next 3 years and maybe even higher?
Well, I think, earlier this year, especially, it really became more focused. I said longer term, it could be 10,000, and that shocked people. But I think shorter term, over the next 3 years, I would speculate there's a very high probability of hitting 4,000. That means gold's going to grow at a CAGR of about 20% for the next 3 years. And that's really related to this sort of currency debasement that's taking place not only by the US, it's the G20 cartel of finance ministers and central bankers. And they're fighting this invisible war. It's World War III. And when you have war like this, and it's invisible war, so they're printing the money to keep the economy chugging along. And what we're recognizing, we're seeing in San Antonio, real estate prices and jumping month over month. In the past year, we're seeing housing starts up 17%. So we're seeing it in Canada too. And I think this is a game changer. So gold can easily go to 4,000, and the math is simple. In 2008, 2009, the federal balance sheet expanded by 3 trillion. This time it's going to expand by about 10 trillion when you add up the numbers. That means when you look at gold, last time went from 800 to 1900, therefore gold from these levels could go to 4,000. It's not irrational. It's not like there's a major a war crisis. This is a pandemic crisis, and this is what makes gold a unique asset class.
We're talking with Frank Holmes here on Small Cap Power. He is the Chief Investment Officer at U.S. Global Investors. You're also a writer, Frank. I want to mention you write for a number of publications. You have your own investment blog, Frank Talk. You are also the co-author of the Goldwatcher, Demystifying Gold Investments. Or investing, I should say. We're talking about gold right now, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Well, the book tries to walk through my journey in the gold business and financing mining companies. I was very blessed. My first deal, not realizing the magnitude of what it would become, was Franco-Nevada with Seymour Schulich and Pierre Lassonde. And it's just wonderful to witness what smart people can do. And then Wheaton River, Silver Wheaton originally becoming this incredible second biggest royalty company in the world. So I've had a real love for royalty companies because I believe they're more like a technology company, a SaaS model with high margins and monthly recurring revenue. And so that's been a big part of explaining that in the book.
Let's talk about Frank Talk, which I just mentioned, your blog. You've got some great stuff on there. One of the things that caught my eye recently was rethinking luxury. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, luxury has always discovered luxury because of the world of gold. And the two demand drivers for gold are love and fear. Fear gets most of the publicity, but if you look in the past 30 years, China and India, which is 40% of the world's population, their GDP per capita, their purchasing power parity was nothing. Today, they're 1-2 with the US 3. Here we are with tremendous buying power. And we go back 30 years ago, as Pierre Lassonde likes to talk about, they were less than 10% of gold consumption. Today, they're over 53%. A lot of that has to do with love. 60% of all gold demand is for love. And now we have the 40%. What makes it take off, the fear, is huge money printing and negative or zero interest rates. Well, that's what we have. And we just don't have it here. When you look at negative real interest rates, it's dominated in Europe. I'm really surprised that gold isn't actually escalating faster in euro terms than the dollar right now.
Always a pleasure. He is the Chief Executive and Chief Investment Officer at U.S. Global Investors. He's also the author of the Goldwatcher, Demystifying Gold Investing. Look for him in all types of publications, and he's also the guy behind Frank Talk, the blog. He is Frank Holmes. Frank, I'd always rather do this in person like we did last time, but it's still always great to talk to you, even if it's on Skype. We thank you for your time and for joining us on Small Cap Power.
It's great to be with y'all.
Thank you. And I'm Jim Gordon. Thank you for watching.